Hello, hello, hello. You are joining the No Brainers Empowering Possibilities Show. This is dialogues of encouragement with fresh perspectives, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, a dash of behavioral psychology, and a whole lot of creative fun. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I'm your host, Roseanne Marsh, the author of the Teen and Parent Empowerment Curriculum Level Up, and you are listening to episode number 17, Interview with a Teen and Parents, What She Would Like You to Know. So I'm really excited today because we have live in the studio office here, Bella Turner, who is a senior at Bountiful High. And what is so incredible about Bella is she has discovered her voice and really is an advocate for some amazing things out there. And I felt like you as viewers needed to be able to hear some of the things that she's going to share with you. And then, of course, if you're joining us live, you have the last half hour when you can join and ask questions too. And I know as a parent, I have a lot of questions I'm going to ask in that second half hour too. But let's start out now. Bella, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Well, I know that you're an advocate for a couple different causes right now.
Yeah.
And so tell me what that looks like and feels like.
So currently I'm been like a big advocate for people who struggle with mental illness, whether that be OCD, depression, or BDD. And also one of my biggest causes is trying to keep people on this earth and doing that through suicide prevention. And then, just trying to bring out the truth of like the realization of what OCD actually is compared to what a lot of other people think it is.
Now, I know you're on with a group for the suicide prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you aligned yourself with other teens, is that right?
Yeah.
So what is it you guys do, and how do you help with the suicide prevention?
So I'm on a teen team for a nonprofit organization called Live Life Bigger. It's actually started by a teen that goes to my high school. He during his junior high years, he was very depressed and suicidal and struggling with a lot of hard things like porn addiction, and just sort of how he was able to recover from that and from mental health. And now he's working on sort of just spreading that message. And one thing that we're doing to help with suicide prevention is we're doing a big concert on June 11th up at the D Event Center up in Ogden, and we're having like an awesome concert. I'm not allowed to announce who like our main singer is yet, but it'll be super cool, and it's really targeted at teens to let them know that they're loved and that they're meant to be here on this earth, that they have a purpose and that they're wanted.
Why do you feel like there is so much suicide right now?
I feel like there's so much going on in the world, like even like outside of the world or in our own personal lives. And I feel like with social media, with the constant comparison, like what we see on social media, it's like majority of it is all fake. Like we're seeing all these like happy pictures or like people with like perfect bodies, right? I could never look like that. Like I could never do that with my life. Like I'm just sad and lonely in my own little hole and just stuck in this cycle of comparison, of depression and of anxiety. And so I think that's a big contributor into why there's so many suicides currently, is just a rise of depression and of anxiety. Like that's like the new plague that we're dealing with.
No, I think you're right. It truly is a plague.
Yeah.
I know we have gone through a time of an infectious disease.
Yeah.
But there probably isn't anything more infectious than something that makes you feel like you don't want to be on the earth anymore.
Yeah.
There's a couple other causes that you are an advocate for. Mm-hmm. And you actually have, I have to say, a pretty clever Instagram account. We're going to put it right down here for you so you can see it. But this gal can do some fun reels. And I have to say that I listened to her on another podcast, and it was interesting to hear what OCD really is. And I had no idea that it encompassed so many different things. So talk to us a little bit about why you decided to start the Instagram and your purpose and some of the things you're doing in that forum.
So I struggle with something called obsessive compulsive disorder, and in more specifics, I struggle with something called scrupulosity, pedophilia OCD, and just right OCD, and BDD. So all of the things. And so one of my biggest things was scrupulosity, which is moral and religious OCD. So my OCD, so OCD is an ego dystonic disorder. So that means that OCD, it attacks things that you hold close to you, and all these intrusive thoughts that people with OCD experience, they're very unwanted. And so when so when something is ego dystonic, that means that it is against one's values, and that it like brings up like urges or thoughts or feelings that are very repugnant, very against oneself. Sorry. And that's my OCD coming out. Me just apologizing. No. We're doing compulsions, baby. I shouldn't be, but I am. But yeah, so it's just, through all this anxiety and feeling so worried that I was not enough, that I was offending God, that I was going to hell, and that just stuck in all this anxiety. And then I got into therapy and I started healing and going through all my treatment, and I just wanted to share my experience and sort of let people know that they're not alone, because I knew what it felt like to be alone. And I was like, I want to be able to make a difference and let people know that they're loved, and that what they're struggling with, like, it doesn't define them, and that they're strong enough to endure it.
I think vulnerability, has become almost a new virtue. And gratefully so, because I think so many out there struggle. Like you said, there's the comparison and everybody looks like a perfect body. But to be able to go out there and say, this is what I'm struggling with, I think it adds so much out there, because there are those that are like, oh man, this is just what I needed to hear. You could kind of, before the show, you shared a couple things that people have reached out to you. What are some of the comments that you've received because of your podcast?
So I have received just like lots of messages from like posts, like I was having a really crappy day today and I saw your reel and it just totally lifted me up. Or other people who also struggle with OCD, I was just saying, thank you so much for sharing your voice, because I feel like I can trust you. Like, even though I've never met like any of these people before, and there's like, I feel like you're my safe place. And just being able to be that sort of like grace to those people, where they can feel loved, and that they can feel like my account is a safe place for them, and that they can message me if they're having any hardships, even though I'm not like a therapist at all. Like, I just use my experience and try to help them know that they're strong enough to get through this, and that through receiving help that they can endure it, and that they can even become stronger than they were.
You realized that you had OCD. Did you realize that there were others around you that were experiencing similar things?
I had heard that there was someone in my neighborhood that also had OCD. And just as I had opened up more about it, about my struggles, I've been like more open to more people just in my neighborhood that struggle with it. Like, let me think. There's like 5 within like a 3-mile radius of where I live that I know like struggle with OCD. And then there's even like more that struggle with anxiety or depression. Like what I said earlier, like mental health is such a plague of like people like constantly struggling and people not feeling like they're good enough. And it's just right next door to us. Like someone's like struggling right next door and we don't even know it.
So as you now have had a chance to get help and investigate and study this and and realize that there is a way to get through it, and have actually been successful in many times now with different skills you're embracing, right?
Yeah.
What do you feel is like the strongest skill that you now have?
I think going through all of my trials, I think one of the biggest things that I've come out with it is empathy. Like being able to, when someone comes up to me and says like, I'm really struggling, just being able to be there for them and to listen. I think having empathy for others, or even like just showing them that you care, even if you don't understand, is so powerful. Like if someone comes up to me and is like, hey, I'm just really struggling with this. And even if I have never experienced before in my life, I can still be that safe space for them and love them no matter what.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. When you look at the high school that you're at, what % of the teens do you feel are struggling?
So most mental health professionals believe that about 25% of people suffer from mental illnesses, but I think it's way more because of the stigma around it. Because back when I was first struggling, if someone just came up to me and was like, hey, are you depressed? I'd be like, no, I'm not depressed. Like, no. But now I think if people were to actually be honest about how they were feeling, how dark they felt and how alone they felt, and to know that what they're feeling is okay and that there's no shame in what they're feeling, I think they would be way more open about it. And I'd say probably like majority of people suffer from depression, anxiety, and will at least experience it like one time in their life.
From what you know of it, do you think it's something that is more prevalent today than maybe like 20 years ago? Are you familiar with any of the statistics?
I am not familiar with those statistics, but I would say I think it's always been a big problem of people who have struggled, but people just haven't been willing enough to open up about it. So I felt like back in the olden days, just kidding, just kidding. I feel like back, let's say like probably like even like 20 years ago, there was still so much stigma being held like around mental illness. And now I've like just seen that sort of stigma just sort of like lift a little bit, like in society and also in ourselves, of just knowing that it's okay to talk about our problems and that there's no shame in it.
Yeah, what a relief that now we feel like we can share the things that we're struggling with and help each other alleviate, lift the heads that hang low.
Yeah.
And you're definitely doing that. And here you are, a senior in high school and making a difference. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different world from when I was in high school. And I know that my teens had different social pressures than I would even imagine. Of course, I had boys, so their social pressures may even be a little bit different from girls. So what do you feel are some of those social pressures that teenagers are going through right now, those big ones that we as parents, maybe we don't even realize how huge those social pressures are?
I think one big one is to always seem like we're doing okay. Like I feel like there's like so much hidden, like so much pain that people are constantly going through, but I feel like we always try to put on happy face. Like people can't know what I'm going through, because if they did, they would think I'm weird or they wouldn't like me. And so I feel like there's just that big pressure to always seem okay. And I think another one is perfectionism, whether it be grades or whether it be like hobbies, or I think that's a big one. That's one thing that my OCD also really attached into, was with scrupulosity, which I always felt like I had to be perfect. Otherwise, I wouldn't be good enough for God. Like there was one time my OCD actually convinced me that I was like Satan, and that this was like my last time, like my last chance here on earth. And that if I messed up, then I would go to like outer darkness with Satan. And so that was,
I can't even imagine the pressure that is to feel that way.
Yeah, it was. I don't believe that anymore. We're good. Thank you, therapy. So yeah.
So as a parent, as you're saying that, you know, teens are saying, you know, I'm okay, you know, I'm fine, I'm fine. But what are some of the signs that we can look for that can indicate to us that maybe our teen is really struggling?
I think a big one is if they sort of retreat back to themselves, or if they sort of like the common signs of depression is like withdrawing and things I used to be used like interested in. But I think it's also hard because sometimes it's totally invisible. Like you can't tell that someone's struggling. Because I had a friend come up to me, because I feel like I'm a pretty happy person, like on the outside. Like I had someone come up to me and I was opening up about my mental health. They're like, but like all the time, whenever I'd see you, I would always think there's no way that she struggles with a mental illness. And then just opening up about it, like my parents had no idea that I was struggling with depression when I was like 14. Like when I was 14, that was probably like the darkest that I've ever been. And they had no idea. So just, I think one big thing that parents can do to sort of help their kids is constantly know that they're loved and try to reach out to them. And sometimes it's so hard because you're not going to be able to like help everyone. Like I just had a teen in my high school commit suicide a couple of weeks ago. And he was super happy. Like his parents thought that he was doing better, and he was really just struggling. So I think a big thing to do is to just constantly let them know that they're loved, even if you don't think they're struggling. Even if it's like, oh yeah, but he's doing okay. Like hug. One thing that my friend Smith, who runs the Live Life Bigger, he says like, hug your happy friends, like love the people, like love everyone around you, because you never know who is really struggling.
I think those are words for the wise. Absolutely. And as a parent, sometimes it's hard because when you have kids that are retreating and won't speak to you,
Yeah.
now that's hard to know. What do I do now to reach them? What do we do as parents to reach them?
That's a hard question,
know,
because
that
I
is
feel like for me, with my OCD, one of my biggest compulsions would be confessing. So I felt like I really always relied on my mom when I was going through some like of my darkest phases. So I would say when your kid's retreating, even if they're like shutting you out, just because it's hard to be shut out. And I can't even imagine being shut out by like one of your children. Like that sounds like incredibly hard. And I can't even imagine that. Because I don't want to say just love them, because I feel like there's so much more to say than just love them. But I think there is probably I think when a teen or a child is struggling, they're going to retreat back. And I would just say love them. Like even if they are retreating and it does hurt like insane, especially like I just can't imagine, like, because I work at a daycare, and like just, and I know that's like totally different than like having my own kid, but like if my kids just start, like if my daycare just kids just sort of started retreating and sort of being like solemn and like wouldn't really talk to me if like I noticed that something was wrong, then I would feel sad, because I want them to know how much I care for them.
Another question I have, and with level up empowering possibilities, we deal a lot with thoughts, feelings, emotions, how to control those things. And that sounds like a lot of the things that you're learning in therapy, even to a deeper degree than maybe we go into in level up. But one of the areas that we talk about are fears, because I think fear is something that we all experience. Yeah. And what are some of the fears you feel of teenagers right now?
I think a big fear that people are facing, even especially with teens, is to I think perfectionism, like trying to be perfect, trying to be good enough. because I think as teens we set the bar so high for ourselves, like an unrealistic expectation. Like I have to have a 4.0, I have to have a perfect citizenship. Like I have to be the perfect kid. Like I can't upset my parents and I have to be a good friend. And when sometimes when we fall short of that, we can be so hard on ourselves. And I think that's a big fear is failure.
So where do you think that comparison comes from? I mean, where do those standards get set? Are they set from the family? Are they set from the teens or from peers?
I think everywhere. I feel like one thing that I've been hearing a lot recently is like during like my youth lessons, people like recently we've been learning a lot about trials and sort of just trials in general and how they help us in the long run and how we become stronger from them, and sort of just going through like what are some trials that we as youth struggle with, and a big one has been comparison and perfectionism. So I think it's like set by ourselves, by our peers, because especially where I'm at in high school, it's like I have to have good grades, otherwise I'm gonna have to be paying several amounts of dollars in order to go to college. And it's like, oh, I have to get a good scholarship so I don't like use all my parents' money and then they go broke. And this is probably just my OCD brain that's jumping from one thing to the next of me not wanting to spend my parents' money or like having to be a burden on other people because I feel like another thing that just ties into like trying to pretend like you're fine because you don't want to worry other people.
So what can we as parents do then to help with that comparison and perfectionism and etc. when we see it in our teens? How can we support and assist or help them get away from that even?
Yeah, I think just realizing or noticing if your child is like constantly trying to push, be like, Mom, Dad, I'm like failing and I'm so sorry. Like, I'm sorry that I'm not doing good enough. Just like if they come like back from school, they're like, oh, I got like an 80 on my test, or like, oh, I failed my test. Just welcome them with loving arms and don't be like, yeah, or like reassure their fears and saying, yeah, you did fail, or focus on what they did do good. Like if they spent hours studying on the test and they got like a C plus, be like, you tried your hardest and thank you so much for that, and give them credit for the effort that they put into what they're doing. Because I feel like that's something that's as teens that we do is we put so much effort into it, and when we don't get the highest like sort of the highest score on like a test or something, we feel like we failed ourselves. And so I think as parents to like show kids their love, because the kids are already punishing themselves through what like they feel like they messed up on.
Sometimes I think as a society we forget to teach that failure is an option.
Yeah.
Not failure consistently all the time on everything.
Yeah.
But that by failing something, actually it's a learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I heard of I watched an interview where she's the owner of Spanx.
That's cool.
And she said that her parents, every night at the meal, they'd sit around and the father would say, okay, what did you fail at today? What did you fail at? What did you fail at? And the point was, they needed to fail at something. And then he was like, and then what did you learn? And so they were learning that it was okay to fail. And what that taught them is then they could risk. It wasn't scary to go out and do, because if I failed, well, I was going to learn something.
Yeah.
So I really loved the psychology. I loved the way he motivated them.
Yeah.
The acceptance, and what a life lesson. And then this is a gal that turned around and made a multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah. Because she knew that, well, if I fell, I'll stand up again and I'll try again. I'll try again. I'll try again.
No, I was just driving up from school one time and I was thinking, like, I'm so glad for all the experiences that I've had, like whether they be good or bad, like all good has come from them. Like like I like was thinking back to when I was like really struggling with depression and like suicidal thoughts back when I was 14. I just thought of all the good that's come from my struggles. Like I've been able to make this account and I've been able to help so many people. Like just yesterday I did a live with my therapist and just seeing all these messages flood in of people saying thank you so much. Like I really needed this today, and being able to know that I'm not alone. And so I think from our hardships there can be good that can come, that can strengthen us, and that we can help us become better people.
Absolutely. I think if we succeed at everything, how do we learn?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we never stumble, where do we get the strength and the fortitude?
Yeah.
You know, I guess the analogy is we don't go to the gym to get strong and avoid the weights. You know, we're there pushing the weights, and I think sometimes we think we don't have to do that, or if we fail, then we're a failure, then the whole thing is a wash. So if you were to talk to a group of teens, which you were talking to lots of people now with social media, what are some of the suggestions you would have for them?
I would just want to let them know that they're good enough, and that even despite their shortcomings, like they are still loved, and that they're still worthy of like of so many good things to come in their lives. Because I feel like as teens, if we like slip up a couple, like if we keep on slipping up, we're like, oh, I don't deserve this, or I'm not good enough for this. And just to, I think just to know that you are worthy and that you are loved and that you make the world a better place is like such a powerful thing for teens now.
So how does that happen in a high school setting where I've walked through high school halls before, and it's been interesting to me because it's very different culture, and the words that I hear are very different from what I used to hear.
You're like, oh, that's a new one.
So how do you, Bella, or your friends, how do you make this ripple effect out there so that other teens can feel that way?
I think just, I know this sounds like probably like cliche almost, but just let everyone know that they're loved, and like, because there's like some kids that go to my school that don't always like, they try, like really try to be liked by everyone, and they're not getting reciprocated. Like they're not getting that reciprocated. And I think just by like to being kind to our peers and giving them the attention that they deserve, and just, oh no, not like pushing them off as like just like another person, like knowing that everyone has worth and that everyone deserves time and attention and love.
Yeah. And it is about the action of it, right? It is about finding the one that's alone, or finding those. Do you see those souls out there at your high school? Do you see kids sitting alone? Do you see kids that don't go to lunch with others? Are you aware, or what is the atmosphere like in your school?
Yeah, I see not like a lot of kids that sit alone, but I see like a few kids that do sit alone and that are very secluded and keep to themselves. And I also see kids all the time that are very social and like try so hard to be like accepted by other people, but then other people just sort of like push them away or like don't really acknowledge them. And I think, so I think there's both like both people that are just sort of like keep to themselves, and then other people that try to make connections, but then they're not being accepted.
Well, so obviously the teens are the ones that are going to create the jobs of the future.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be running the country, etc. And how do you feel the teens out there are with really dreaming and awakening their passions and really wanting to make a difference? What's the pulse out there?
I think it's really powerful. I think that this like generation that I'm a part of has so much potential for good. Like, I think I see so many people using their experiences to make a positive impact in the world. Like my friend Smith, he's created this like huge Instagram account where he goes around and speaks to people like of all ages, of parents, of teens, and just letting them know that they're loved, and like having friends go into like the medical field and help people who are struggling, or help people going to be teachers to help teach. I think that the potential of this generation is like absolutely huge.
So what do you dream about? What do you want to be?
I want to be a therapist. That's my plan currently. But yeah, I just want to help people who struggle the same as I did. I still struggle every day, as you've heard my 1,000 apologies during this. Yeah, I just want to help people who struggle with OCD and depression and anxiety, and just sort of try to be that safe place for them.
I think it's beautiful. And isn't it like it when we struggle with something, when we go out and learn, and then when we start conquering, it seems like we want to turn around and teach it to the person behind us that we see is traveling along that same path that we are. And you're doing an amazing job with that.
Thank
and
you.
I'm excited that you came on today, because you really have a voice. You're not afraid to use it. You don't apologize for what you've experienced, because it's reality. And because by you're opening up, you're educating more people, you are letting people know that what I'm feeling is valid, and there's someone out there that understands me, and it's Bella Turner for one, and all those other voices are out there. So I, for one, am very proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much.
That I want you to know, you can also see Bella in her actress role, where she has helped level up Empowering Possibilities. We have a little trailer, and if you go to nobrainers.com, it's right there. It's actually, how would you describe the trailer? What would you say it is?
It's exciting. It's exciting. It gives a lot of energy and a lot of looks, like a lot of glimpses into what people are struggling with, and also of how we can overcome and become stronger. Like one of the scenes is like with the fence that I remember, with the singing over the fence. Yes, of like just overcoming and becoming powerful and helping to uplift others.
Now you got to go see it.
Yes,
just for that.
It is amazing. I love it.
I think it's the 1 minute version. We had a 6-minute trailer, and I think the 1 minute one made it. But there is a part where it's symbolic of the struggles that we face in our life.
Yeah,
and then it's actually symbolic of what you learn in Level Up Empowering Possibilities. We haven't talked a lot on this show about the teen and parent empowerment curriculum, but you can learn more about it at nobrainers.com/learn more. And let them know what your Instagram tag is.
So my Instagram tag is Walk of Waves.
Walk of Waves. Yes. So with Bella Turner, you got to go on there and like her and look at some of her amazing reels. They're creative, they're fun, they have a message, and they are making an impact. Thank you, Bella.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So grateful you were
here
today.
Thank you for having me on.
Again, we're grateful that you've joined with us today. And for those of you who are here live, we'll be asking more questions of Bella in just a moment. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.